Hey everybody, this is Dee with Unplug Grief Ministries podcast, and I'm glad you're joining in with us. I have my friend Marty here. Um, she's enjoying a little of her own little treat while I drink my water, but I'm so excited that Marty is here with us. Don't you live like up in the Northeast, like New Hampshire or Maine?
So I actually live part-time in Vermont. So
Oh,
you had
Vermont.
that right,
Yeah.
but also part-time in New Mexico
Oh,
and part-time on the road in a little RV.
oh, so you really get around, don't you?
Yes, yes, I do. I'm coming to you today from Austin, Texas.
Are you serious?
I am.
So you're
Yeah.
being a Texan today.
Yep. I'm trying.
Well, Marty's here because she has a unique gift and talent that she uses to help people through their grief. And I like to call it as an art. It's a type of art that she uses to help people to find that healing through art for their grief. And she's going to tell us about it, explain it to us, and tell us more about what she does and why she does it, and how you can participate and also begin that healing process. And then I believe you are also speaking at the Virtual Global
Yeah.
Grief Conference. So we'll talk about that at the end as well. So I am going to proudly leave the floor to you and let you speak and share your story and your website or your talent, your skills, so that we all can rise above and be. It's your floor.
All right. Thank you so much, Coach D. It's such a pleasure to be here and lovely to connect with your audience. And I am grateful to the Global Grief Conference, actually, for connecting me with you and some beautiful people doing important work in the world. Um, I actually have two businesses. I started my first business, Memories Out of the Box, over 20 years ago in Brooklyn, New York. I lived in Brooklyn, New York for 28 years.
Oh,
Um,
sorry for that.
oh, I loved every minute of it. I loved it.
I was
I
born
would
there.
say, really?
Yeah.
Oh, wow.
I
Well,
come, when people ask me where I'm from, I always say I'm from the concrete jungle of New York.
oh,
And that's it. I can
okay.
hear the accent. And the funny thing, I only lived in New York City the first 7 or 8 years of my life, and I still have that New York accent.
Sure. Yeah, that's when you develop your accent. That's when you put down your language is that's when your accent gets attached to it. So it makes perfect sense.
But I lived in
If
the
you
South.
moved at 3 years old, that wouldn't have happened.
Oh,
But
okay,
you
okay.
know, 7 or 8, yeah,
Yeah.
you definitely have that in
Because I've
you.
been in the
So
South most of my life, so you would think I would pick up that Southern drawl.
no, it doesn't quite work like that.
I know. I was just wishing. I was just trying to get the New York out of me.
Yeah, no,
I'm
no,
stuck with it.
I love New York City. Absolutely loved it. Loved Brooklyn, a neighborhood called Prospect Heights, Brooklyn. I lived there 28 years and I loved it, except probably the last 3 years because I was one of those, oddballs who decided to start my own business. And not only just any ordinary business, but a business that most people had never heard of. So my first business is called Memories Out of the Box. And it's not, I haven't closed it, but she's kind of on hold. As I mentioned, I live part-time in Vermont, part-time in New Mexico, and part-time on the road. So I've had to put it on hold, but the I the idea of that business is that I help people with all their photos, documents, memorabilia, everything they've saved and or inherited in their life that has a story attached to it. So obviously photos, but medals and souvenirs and the baby bracelet and ultrasounds, everything baby booties, even like everything, all the travel stuff, the brochures, the airline tickets, the going to plays. Um, Sorry, this falls out.
Oh, you
Going to
see, it did that.
plays. So people keep the playbills, they keep the tickets, because there's a memory attached to it, a
Right.
significant memory attached to it. So
So, I mean, I do that in a way, but I do it as in scrapbook. So would that
yeah,
also be the same thing?
so it is to an extent. It so we've been scrapbooking in this country for over 100 years. I actually have a friend who wrote a book about it. So uh, it's called writing with, I think it's called writing with scissors.
Oh.
So we've been doing this for forever, but unfortunately, in New York City, people, their immediate response was, they thought of only creative memories, and nothing against creative memories or the more crafty scrapbooking, the more contemporary scrapbooking, because I love that industry because I was able to do my work because of a lot of the tools that they developed.
Hmm.
But I couldn't call myself a scrapbooker because people only could conceive of those, sticker stamps and glitter glue. Like they couldn't conceive of, these scrapbooks that have, baby teeth, locks of hair, baby booties. Like they couldn't conceive of this 100-year-old tradition of storytelling, visual storytelling. Um, so I just was like, oh, can't call it that. So what do I do? So I finally found an organization called the Association of Personal Historians, or APH for short. They'd been around at least 10 years by the time I found them. Mostly memoir writers, oral historians, video biographers, and then quirky people like me, that I call legacy artists, because I don't do any interviewing. Um, any words that go into my final product are words that have been in newspaper clippings or other documents, unless they give me captions and then I'll add them, but I don't do that aspect. It's really a visual narrative that, with the stuff that's already been collected. Um, Needless to say, it's not just physical stuff, it's also digital stuff. Like everybody's like, oh, memories out of the box. Oh, you're just working with old people, and it's like I take, at the time pre-COVID, I would take their phone out of their hand and I'd say, here's a box. This is a box, and it has even more images in it. Can you find the ones that are really special to you? And of course, nobody can at this point. So um, with Memories Out of the Box, my goal is to gather all my clients' photos, memorabilia, all of that kind of stuff, and with the goal of organizing and editing, like a documentary filmmaker, editing, culling, curating their life. And Coach D, often, I would say 90% of the time, do that without my client, because my clients have been so busy, doing their work, that they just don't have the bandwidth. They're so overwhelmed. They just want me to take care of it. So I started Memories Out of the Box over 20 years ago. I've worked with about 100 clients. What I found as I started traveling is that I'm not particularly fond of digital photo organizing. It doesn't give me that same kind of pleasure. I like you, if you're scrapbooking, it's like that, the tactile aspect, the holding the brochure, the maps, the key cards, all of that stuff. Like I love that tactile thing. And I love being able to organize by actually the physicality of laying it out. And
Hmm.
needless to say, I cannot do that while I'm on the road. So that's why I said Memories Out of the Box has been put on hold to an extent, but I'm also have a range of both personal historians. Unfortunately, the Association of Personal Historians has since folded. They went bankrupt about 5 years ago. But there are personal historians, memoir writers, oral historians, video biographers that are still doing this work to this day. And I'm happy to connect any of your people to any of my colleagues. There's also another, thankfully, another organization that I have joined now because APH folded. So it's called the Photo Managers. And my friend Kathy Nelson started this. She actually came from a creative memories background. She was very involved in that. But then she switched to the Photo Managers, and started this group of people who help people manage their photos, right? It's
Oh,
just a
okay.
outrageous amount of collection of photos. So they do both physical organizing and scanning and all of that. Your videos, your 8 millimeter, all of the different things that you have in your collection. I have colleagues that do that too, and I'm happy to connect any of your colleagues. Now, needless to say, I know we're on Unplug Grief, and I had a client who I've had several clients who've contacted me because a loved one passed away, and they wanted to do a special book, a special something with all the things of that person's life. Um, a lot of times it was too, like, I had a couple of people contacting me, maybe half a dozen, but ultimately only two people moved ahead on the project. And one was a woman whose son died in 9/11. And so we created a beautiful scrapbook in honor of his son. Um, and yeah, we're very aware of the fact that when people pass away, they leave a legacy that unfortunately is often left in boxes or bags or on phones or hard drives or things, computers. And so we love helping families tell the stories of the people that matter.
I
Um,
found not only newspaper clippings, but I've actually found poetry and stories that my son wrote when he was in high school. And I
oh,
was like, oh. So I save it. And I know a lot of people
yeah.
say, why are you saving this kind of stuff? And I'm like, okay, you haven't lost a child. You don't understand the meaning and the connection of this. You know, like you said, this is a legacy of my son. He loved to write poetry. He
Oh,
loved to write stories. And in fact, I'm still in contact with his English teacher who helped him get written in a book, but he also got, I think, an English scholarship for college for being one of the best writers. But I may be wrong for that. But I remember him getting some kind of award for it. And she always talks about Timothy. I guess, and I remember the
yeah.
time when she had to leave because of her cancer, and he was telling me how much he missed her because she said he said she gets it, she gets it, she likes my writing, she likes that. So I do have that, and I
Of
think what you're
course.
saying I want to do that too. So as I can finish unpacking the stuff upstairs, I do have like 2 or 3 buckets that's covered. Timothy only. Timothy's writings, Timothy's
Oh,
clothes, Timothy's um, the flags that went to Mount Everest that had his name on it. I have all kinds of things that now I know when go back to scrapbooking what I can do with that.
oh, absolutely. Absolutely. It's so important. It's so important to remember, to remember and hold on to things that were important to the people who passed away. And I don't understand necessarily the philosophy of letting those things go when they are tied to somebody important in your life, and there's no reason to do it. Now, if it becomes overwhelming, if there's too much stuff, then I encourage people to, like, let me take photographs of these things, or, like, if you say clothing, I have friends who will make quilts. I have friends who will make bags out of them, tote bags. I have like I said, I'm one of the weirdos in my personal historian and photo management. And so I call myself a legacy artist, like you said in the beginning. And so I have a bunch of friends that can create all kinds of things so that they're not stuck in bins necessarily, that they're back into your life in some way. And they're not like, taking up, like, needless to say, I was in New York City. We didn't have a lot of space in New York
Yeah.
City. So, 3 tubs of stuff would take, so you could take things out, you could create different things, you could take photographs of things and add those to a scrapbook or a photo album. There's ways, or, get a digital book printed. There's ways to do that. So, but I did want to say, when you had mentioned me being part of the Global Grief Conference, my second business actually started about 10 years ago, because I found it difficult to explain what I do for a living, for people to understand it. And needless to say, this is very personal work that I do. It's very intimate work. Um, Whether it's for someone who's passed away or somebody who's living, it's still very intimate work. And so people need to get to know me, get to like me. There has to be a connection to then trust me, entrust me
Yes.
with these things. So I started a story sharing event, as a way to market myself, as a way to get in front of people on a consistent basis. So I host monthly virtual story sharing events called Show and Tell. And I started them in person in New York City and Brooklyn 10 years ago. So this month, as a matter of fact, Coach D, I am celebrating my 10th year anniversary, and I've hosted about 160 of them. So I I do them on all different themes, but needless to say, so my next one is old, new, borrowed, and blue. So it's all about weddings, right? Then I have cards, letters, and thank you notes, love letters, lockets, and valentines, uh, shoes, boots, bags, and hats, um, tails, paws, beaks, and claws, right? Everything about animals. I have a travel one. I have all of these, but needless to say, at every event, I have found people come with a photo or an object of somebody who's passed away. So I didn't create show and tales with that in mind, thinking that that would be a safe space for people to share the stories of their loved ones who's passed. But it just naturally grew into that by creating a safe space. So I've just had the honor and pleasure of having people come and bring an item like a newspaper clipping, like a piece of poetry, like your son's poetry, Timothy's, and share that with a group. It could be a group of strangers, but the best part is that you make that deeper connection with one another, and they learn from what you've gone through. Like it's a learning process when they can experience that. And so I've just loved having this opportunity. And so when I heard about the Global Grief Conference, I knew I wanted to be a part of it. And so I'm hosting a workshop, as you know, because you're the one that's, doing, working your magic. So I'm
Well, the
doing
only
that.
thing I was doing was I wish I could have done more, but I was only doing the flyers and the workshop on the press release. But I'm not really doing like what Nathan and Josh is doing or Tony. They're in Colorado, so they're doing
Yes.
all the IT part of it. I was doing all the marketing part of it.
Yeah. Well, that's a huge part of it, Dee, a huge part of it. That is what I found with both personal historians and photo managers and artists as a whole,
Yes.
creators, like we're saying with Tony and his team, creators of new things that um, a lot of them deeply, and I did, believe me, over 20 years ago when I started Memories Out of the Box, I totally underestimated how, marketing, how, you can be absolutely fantastic at what you do, but if you can't get the word out about it, you know, you're going to be fantastic doing nothing by yourself. Like just, so that's what I am also. I host these events, but I'm also teaching people how to host these events as a way to market themselves. So people can host events, invite people to bring their photos, their documents, their things, and
So
tell
it's a
their
support, it's a
stories.
support group, but it's a support group and at the same time sharing your stories and scrapbooking with all the box, whatever. Yeah.
Talking about the things in our life, the things that matter.
Okay.
So that's one of the things that I wanted to share with your listeners, is that I created, and maybe this will be in the show notes or something, that I created a what I call a play sheet. It's called Your Life in 30 Things. So it's to look around your space, on your person, in your backpack or your bag, in your pockets. What are the things that you have around you that would tell your life story?
Hmm.
So I would love to give this as a gift to anyone who's listening, anyone in your community, and then you can do it for yourself. But then you can also, it gives you a chance. You can also ask your children. Why do you have that T-shirt? Why that poster? What's that on the windowsill, right? And your children can ask you, why is what's that about?
What's
Like,
the story about that?
what's the
Yes.
story of these
Oh
things that
yes.
I see all the time, going to your grandparents, your aunts, your friend's house, even on Zoom these days, right? We end up looking and we can see the stuff behind the people, even on, who is it? The late night show has a late show and tell. And it's called Show and Tell. It's a late night show and tell. And they ask people, like, tell me about that object that's behind you or on your desk, or show us something, because everybody's been in their homes, right? So they've been able to take something personal and tell the story of it. So it's been quite kind of interesting. Somebody said, did you see that the late night is doing a show and tell? I'm like, what? So yeah, the things around you. What's a thing? What's a photo or an object that would tell your life story?
That's a good question. That I've
And
had
it
for
doesn't,
30 years. That I've had for 30 years.
no, it's 30 things, your life in 30 things. So
30 things. Okay. Okay.
your life in
I'll
30
make it
things.
easier then.
Yeah. And keep in mind that it doesn't have to be an epic story. It's just a story that's significant somehow.
Okay. I probably can because I have a mixture of things down here and things upstairs.
Things upstairs.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I see that I got you thinking.
Yeah, now. Yeah, the funny thing is this weekend I am actually finally going to clean my office out, get everything unpacked, get the plastic um, things that I use for packing all into one place, and hopefully through all that re-unpacking, I can discover more things. So
Yes,
30 things that I have that can tell a story, that I can tell a story about it.
right.
That will be easy for me.
Right.
I hope.
Your life's, it's like, what could show what's important to you? Like, people who, like, all they have is like albums and ticket stubs and uh autographed CDs, and you can it's like music is obviously like they're passionate about it, but then you can find out why are they so passionate about it, right?
Mhm.
You see people, they collect rocks, or they collect, and it's like, seashells or whatever. And you're like, why? So tell me, but the point is like, tell me why. Why did you pick that up? Who gave it to you? Why is it important to you?
Well,
Those
like
kinds
I
of
still
things.
have my, although like my eyes are real bad because I can't use them. I still have my video cameras. I still have my Nikon cameras, but I can't use them anymore. But it's like I hold on to it because it tells me, it reminds me of what I used to do. And I used to do photography. That was my
Uh,
love. That I used to
Oh,
teach photography. I used to teach black and
oh,
white film things. So if I
really?
got rid of it, then I would forget the story, right?
Right, right.
Okay.
Absolutely. Absolutely. I have lots of in my artist inspiration and tools. That's one of my themes. Every time I've asked people that, they've brought, like, there's at least a couple of people who bring photographic equipment, So whether they continue to pursue it or not, they do that. Yeah.
I do miss the photography.
I'm sure.
I
I'm
miss the
sure you
dark
do.
room. I loved working in the dark room.
Really.
Oh, and what the funny thing about it, it does have a story of not just of what I did with it and what I did to teach kids photography and all that. But I remember I used to teach. When I was in college, I learned to do dark room. I did a lot of photography, but when I moved to Maryland, my younger sister was still in college, and she was taking a photography class. She wasn't
Really?
doing dark room. She hated the dark room, so I would do it for her.
For her.
Pass. So I just happened to have been working at the Washington Avenue Hospital, and occasionally I help the um, photography. Oh, forgot what the people downstairs that handle all the photography and the marketing and stuff like that. And and occasionally I would help them in the morgue and stuff like that, take pictures of stuff. But anyway, um, so I was having lunch with Glenn one day, and I was telling the story about my sister and how I loved the darkroom. Come to find out, my Glenn was the professor, the teacher that my sister had for the darkroom.
Really?
And I was like,
Wow.
and he said, that's why she passed because you did her homework. Well, I told him, I said she hated the dark room. And I don't know why. I love the dark room. But
Yeah. Aw,
so
that's
fortunately, it was like
sweet.
a
That's a
year.
sweet story.
But it was fortunately it was like a year after she left, so they couldn't do
Oh,
anything about it, you know. But
oh,
that would connect me to why, as well as
yep.
teaching kids. I used to teach kids, Pathfinders, the kids in our church, photography and black and white
Oh,
and stuff like that. And I used to do weddings and funerals and stuff like that. I mean, there's just so much I used to do. But if my eyes just had not gotten so bad,
yeah.
I would still love. But I use
Uh-huh.
my cell phone, but it doesn't do as well as my
Of
35
course.
millimeter. You know.
Yeah,
Oh yeah,
of
I know they're
course.
trying to do that
But
other techie thing, but
that's
still never
wonderful.
the same as those manual lenses to focus.
Yep. Very fun.
Yeah.
Very fun.
Wow.
Yes.
Now I
That's
get
great.
what you're saying. The story and telling
Of the
of the
things in
things
your
that
life.
in your life.
Yeah.
Oh man, now my wheels are gonna really be.
Right. And I will send you the link that your listeners can go to download their it's, like I said, I don't call it a worksheet, I call it a play sheet. And I had a good friend, I had it numbered 1 through 30,
Yeah.
and then I had a good friend of mine start freaking out because she was like, does number 1 mean it's the most important thing
Oh, she was.
and
Yeah.
does not, and I said, no, 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 no. It's just to, have 30 things, like
Yeah.
30 lines. But anyway, she forced me to take the numbers out, so I was like, okay, okay.
Oh,
But
that would have been a
anyway,
good idea to, what's the most
right.
important, what was the least, but
Yeah,
she
well,
could have she
not,
could have integrated
yeah,
that
because
for
that
her.
it caused too much stress for people.
So that
Like you were saying earlier, there's a lot of fear. Like I started hosting these events, and I'd say, bring an object, tell a story. And people would like, I didn't get the people coming, like 10 years ago. And then I realized people are afraid that I was going to actually ask, I was going to force them to share. Right. And so I said, my next thing was bring an object, tell a story. And then I'd say, show and tell or look and listen.
Yeah.
Because people, I mean, the reality is people are very frightened. Like it's been a fascinating experience human experience,
Yes. Yes.
to like hold this space for people to share their stories, because and that's what a lot of people bring things, and you can tell that they brought something because they got it in their pocket, or
Yeah.
they're it's got it in the bag, and they keep on looking at the bag or whatever, this kind of thing. And so I'd finally say, does anybody else want to share? And I'd look at the person who'd obviously brought something, and finally they're like, oh yes, I feel safe. Like, they kind of breathe, and they're like, okay. And then they shared their story and came up afterwards and said, thank you so much. I've never told this story before. I really appreciate it.
And did they wait till a few others tell their stories first before they started to open up?
Yes,
So that gave them a
absolutely.
better idea what was to come. Okay.
Yes, absolutely.
A motivation. A motivation.
Indeed.
Indeed.
We we all need it.
Yes. So, what at the Global Grief Conference,
Yes.
you you're doing the story and tell, or show and tell,
Show and tell. Yep.
and what day are you doing your workshop?
Oh, goodness. I think it's at the very start. It's like it's the day before the conference, like not the day before, but it's like it's the first day of the conference.
Oh, I think you're
And
in the morning. You're in the morning. I remember
I,
now.
I think, I think so, because, but
Yes.
I'm going to be, by that time, I'm going to be out in California. So I'm on different, like, I can't remember the time. I have it down, but I don't know the exact time. Now my next thing is to end up, I've hosted, um, a couple of show and tales and at the photo managers conference in Denver last week. And so now I'm like, okay, now I need to go back and read all the emails. I was supposed to see Tony in Denver, but unfortunately there was a mixed communication and we missed each other. But
Um,
anyway, so I've got to go back and read all the emails, and I did sign up for StreamYard. I have an account, but I've got to do some watching the videos and
yo, me
learning
too.
how to
You and
do it.
me. Yeah, we
Yeah,
trying to figure it out.
yeah,
Uh, it's gonna be interesting how everything's gonna work and how everything's gonna
yeah.
fall in place. But I'm looking forward to this. Although it might be a reminder to me if I chose to go into your class and listen, um, but I am going to try and have maybe one or two items by the time your workshop starts.
Oh, that would be wonderful, because remember at the last training was when I end up realizing only what, five other people can be on the screen with me. Um, Otherwise, the conversation is through the chat. And so I would love for you to be one of the story sharers for that
Okay.
event, because all of a sudden I realized, oh, I guess I've got to reach out to people and get a commitment for them to show up, because it's not a talk. It's a back
Workshop.
and forth thing.
Yeah.
So it's a very highly interactive, story sharing gathering. So anyway, I will have, if you would like to do that, that's great. Then I only need to reach out to 4 other people. And I know one other person who will join me for sure. So that means I only have to reach out to 3 more people, just to make sure I have back a backup.
Those things don't want to stay in your ear, do they?
I think that they finally say, you know what, enough. You know how we're always talking about like enough Zoom. Like I
Yeah.
think my earbuds like just pop out. They're like, okay.
I don't understand why you're only supposed to have 5 people in the room.
So it's not 5 people. 5 people can be on camera. You know, you can invite, I think there's 5 to 6 people who will be on camera, meaning I'll be able to see them, you know, because the worst thing for a story sharing host like myself is to be looking at a screen where all I see is me.
Oh,
So
I see what you're saying now.
so
Oh, so
supposedly I can
okay.
only get 4 or 5 other people who will actually be on the screen with me so I can see them and I can interact with them, and then there'll be the chat, you know, but it won't just be me. So and that's, I
But the
would love
people
to
who are
have
on the
you.
chat are the ones who are going to be able to see you,
They're going to be able to see everybody that's on,
the camera.
all the people that are up, and they'll be able to ask questions. And but I don't know if they can see. The thing is that I want people to show an object and share a story. Like it's an hour and a half program, I think, or an hour, at least an hour, and I want people to be able to show an object and share its story, right? But in chats, regular chats on Zoom, you can't add a photo. So anyway, what I'm going to just ask everybody who's listening is if they want to participate, what I ask them to do is to actually describe the object and then share the story. And then I'll take a few of those and say them out loud to the audience. But I've got to brush up, but I got a month to do it. So I think I can almost a month.
I hope you're
Um,
not like me. I hope you're not a procrastinator like me.
Oh, I when it's starting to get closer, I'm like, yeah, I've got it already set. Today was a busy day, but tomorrow I'm going to spend some time looking through those videos that the team at Global Grief Conference sent. So I can, you know, do my best to be up to speed and to promote it to my network.
So I trying to remember. Did you not also write a book?
Mm, no, that's not me.
Okay,
So-
but you do have a website.
I do have a website, yes. And it is Show and Tales. So it's show and TALES.com.
Okay.
So, and like I said, my memories out of the box business is on pause. So I do have memoriesoutofthebox.com. And you can go look. It's not the best website, but you can see some past clients, and I'm happy to connect people to my colleagues. Show and Tales is the thing that I'm doing because when I was in Denver, I did my 10th year anniversary celebration show and tales there to kick off 5 months of a road trip in my little van that I call Brooklyn, and with my travel companion, who I don't have here right now, but she's called Flatsy, and Flatsy is a flat cat because I would be too nervous to actually like have a living thing other than myself to manage while I'm on a road trip, a 5-month road trip. So from Austin, I head down to San Antonio, then out to El Paso, Tucson, Palm Springs, LA, up the coast, and then across the northern part of the country back to Vermont by the beginning of August.
Oh my goodness.
But I'm really excited, Dee. I'm really excited.
Oh my goodness. See, if it was me, I'd be chasing you because I want to make sure I'm doing this right. I think this is easy enough to know that if you picked one or two items that
Right?
you would, there's plenty of stories to tell of everything you have. And if you can't think of a story, I mean, I'm just looking at some objects right here in front of me that I love that I got at an estate sale. But it was an estate sale of somebody who was very wealthy and popular in this area. He
Oh,
owned so much land over Orchard Road. He had the home mall there. They had a
oh,
trailer, what do you call it? Trailer. Well, anyway, they got rid of all that. Now they have what it's called oh, I hate it when my brain does this. Anyway, they now have this big beautiful mall there. But he has passed away, and I remember one of my clients because I sold insurance as well. She was telling me about it.
oh,
So I had bought stuff at her estate sale. Then I went to the Butler. It was Butler Plaza, and I could not believe all the things they were selling in there. And then I just happened to find some office supplies. I bought some of his beautiful glass wood um, shelves and file cabinets
really?
and home deco stuff. And I had almost
Oh,
forgotten that I had this. So when I was unpacking, I was like, oh, the Butler Plaza stuff that I got from
ah,
Mr. Butler. And how
right?
they got good
See,
deals.
it has a story.
I remember they were good deals. You could not walk by it and pass it and look, you know. And there
But
was a
there's
lot
the
more stuff
story.
too, but I had to tell myself no more, no more.
Don't we all, right?
Yeah,
That's the most amazing thing is that, we have to like manage our stuff, right?
yeah,
That's lovely.
yes. Oh my goodness, I would have
Yeah,
so much stories from everything that I have, just in this room alone. Not
right?
necessarily of Timothy. Um, some of the media stuff I have when Timothy was alive. I have when he was on the Make a Wish on the cruise. I have
Yeah.
all those pictures up. So I mean, there's stories of everything everywhere, you know.
Well, that's
I
my tagline.
yeah,
Everything has a
has a
story.
story.
And it doesn't like everybody's like, oh, it needs to be this big epic story. No,
No,
no. Everything, my t-shirt has a story. I mean, it's
yeah,
not an epic story. My, my pen has a like, again, it's not an epic story, but that, and that's the big problem with my professional organizer friends is that everything does have a story. So if there's just too much of it, how do you end up keeping the story and letting go of the stuff?
yeah.
And so thankfully I have a bunch of beautiful people. When you said, did I have a book? Do I have a book? No, I do not. I do not love. It's not my happy place. Writing. I do it. I do it well, but it's not my happy place. But I have tons of friends who are authors, and one of them ended up with his partner wrote a book called What We Keep, and it
Oh,
literally is show and tell in a book form. There's a
mhm.
picture of the object, and then there's a beautiful little story. They interviewed over 150 people around the country, asking them, what thing brings you joy, magic, and meaning? And they talked to people from all walks of life and created a beautiful photo book with these stories. Um, And then my friend Matt Paxton from the Hoarders and also Legacy List, he just wrote a book, and I think it's keep the memories, let go of the stuff. I think that's the name. I'm spacing it right now because I've been very busy, but he just, he knows it's about like he's been clearing out houses, he's been dealing with hoarders, he's been dealing with this for years. And he knows the big challenge is for people is that there's stories, and there are people who passed away, who, they hold on to the things. Um, and so he's just trying to get people to think differently and think, oh, I can keep the memory. I can write it down. I can take a photograph of something. I can do a video. Now you can do videos, you know, you can just hold something up and do a little video about it. Like, so you can tell the story to friends, to family. You can have me help you host a show and tell, about someone, and have them bring things about that loved one, that they shared. So there's all kinds of ways that you can tell the story. And then it might be, nobody forces, but it might be easier to let go of the actual thing if
One,
you can keep the story.
one time, this I'm just joking with you, but it's true. So once I used to at my church do a lot of children's story, and people have been
Hmm.
asking me lately, why haven't I been telling stories? And I said, I have many, but nobody's asked me to come. But anyway, one of the things I've been one of the things I used to show and tell in the stories was Lizzie. And the kids loved to have Lizzie, hold Lizzie, and play with her while I'm telling the story. And then
Really?
it got to the point. I mean, I brought her to church like every week, and Lizzie loved coming to church. Now there's a rule she can't be there. But anyway, it was so funny as every time I would get up to tell the story, and I would say, "So, what story are we going to talk about today?" And you would hear a grown-up adult man in the back saying, "Dogs, talk about Lizzie." And that's when I started calling my adults that was sitting behind me my big kids, my adult kids. So
Right.
Lizzie was a good show and tell.
Exactly.
They love it. But I think I was telling the story because dogs, as we know, and most animals have a very good sense of hearing and smelling as
Right.
well as seeing. But they can hear things that we can't hear. And we're like, what
Correct.
are you barking at? I don't get it. But they, for some
Right.
reason, heard someone about ready to walk by that we in our human ears don't hear.
Yep.
It's amazing. And it's amazing
Yes.
with us how they can smell things and they can tell what's good and what's not good. So the idea of telling the children the story is that God gifted the animals to be able to do things for us that we could not do, you
We
know?
can learn a lot from them.
Oh yes. Oh yes. And Lizzie, I tell you, she has I've learned to be patient. But I say you can find stories in anything and everything.
It's true.
That is
I've
awesome.
never tired, never, over 160 events, and I've never tired from hearing the
A
stories of
story.
the things people keep.
Because
It's
they're all
just, it's just
interesting
beautiful.
stories and they come from
Yeah,
all walks of life.
absolutely. I've had any people from, uh, you know, um, like young 20s all the way to 80s in New York City when it was in person. It was, every religion, every culture,
Yes.
uh, male, female, everybody's like, oh, just women go there. I'm like, no. So it was a real mix of people. And that's what I miss, not living in New York City anymore. Um, and is that mixture, and just the way that people could end up saying, oh, we've got so much more in common, but we would never have met each other than this this event where we could bring an object and tell a story brought us together.
In a sense, so I want to bring this up because I know we're going to come to a close in a moment, is that one of the good reasons why I think it was important to hear you about all this is I think it's perfectly and wonderfully done, especially for grievers, because they will have something of a loved one, especially if a parent lost a child. And like me, I kept a lot of stuff. I didn't keep all his stuff, but I kept a lot of stuff. I didn't keep all his clothes either, which I regret. But anyway, because when he died, I had to move out. I couldn't live there any longer because now the income changed. I couldn't afford to rent. But anyway,
Mhm.
yeah. Now maybe I can clean out his boxes a little bit more. Maybe narrow
Yeah.
the three down to one.
And you could take photos of some of those things, or you could create something like we were talking about. You could create something yourself. You seem like very creative anyway, but you could create a tote bag, or you could create, some other thing. Now, once the thing about the beauty of taking a photograph of things is that you can still create a book, right? You can, that book that I mentioned about from Bill Shapiro and Naomi Wax, What We Keep. You could create a book about what you keep, like what we keep, all about Timothy. And those three bins could turn into a
Mhm.
book, 100-page book. That would
Oh,
be
I see what
that,
you're saying. Yes,
right? Do you know what I
yes,
mean?
yes.
It would take up this much space. It still would, and it would be easier to grab off the,
Bookshelf.
coffee table or out of the bookshelf and look through it than the bins, right?
Yes.
So it's, I still am somebody who feels very deeply about the importance and the richness of having tactile things, having things that you can hold. But like you were saying, that maybe instead of having three bins, you could have one, but those other two, you could take photographs of each piece and create a book.
Or a scrapbook.
Hmm.
Because a scrapbook is a good storytelling.
Absolutely. But unfortunately scrapbooks usually take up more space. That's all I'm saying. Maybe not for you if you have the space, but because if you they just do, they just get like full, like of thing, of stuff,
Oh,
which
yeah.
is fine. It's beautiful, it's wonderful, but it can take up more space. That's the reason why I mentioned if you took a photograph of stuff and then you end up creating a printed book, it takes up so much less space. But if you're not space conscious, you don't have to worry about space, then absolutely make a scrapbook for sure.
Yeah.
That you, since it's something you do already, so
Yeah.
it would bring
Well,
you pleasure.
this has been great. I really needed this as a good reminder for me, and I sure hope it's a reminder to everybody else of what they can do and the blessing of what we can and don't have to keep, but we can still make a story from it. Like you said, take photographs of it, or put it in a unique place that you will always have something. And the thing about it, storytelling is such a big thing because you never get old with storytelling. No matter how many times you hear about it, sometimes it's like it's still brand new.
Yeah,
Um, and this also
absolutely.
explains why men also hold a lot of stuff,
Right.
especially their cars, but they can't keep their cars very long. But still, you know. But I also think this is going to be really vital and important to grievers because now they can look I've seen with so many mothers, they're afraid to go into their child's room because they don't want to take it apart because they feel they still have that connection with their child by being in that room. And I understand that. Unfortunately, I had to move, so Timothy's room had to be packed really quick.
Right.
And his stuff lived in the storage unit for 8 years. So now I want to be able
I
to
know.
bring it out and hang it up and show and tell it, and that's going to be awesome. That's going to be fun.
Oh, that's wonderful.
And I want people to feel comfortable about doing it. And I don't want people to think or be ashamed or embarrassed to share these stories and to share these items with your friends and family. because when you talk about showing items of your child that remind you of a story about them, that is the story you write down and you keep near that item, or you take a picture of that item and put it with that story. Um,
Yeah,
you can still keep the item, just put them in a unique place, and then that's just that's a
so
memorable thing to
important.
do. A memorable thing of everything that you keep and that you hold. And I hope in some ways it will help bring some healing, help people open their hearts, open their minds, and to see that there is still hope for themselves and their family. Because I
And they're
know,
not alone.
yes,
They're not
exactly.
alone.
Do you have a Facebook page about this?
So I do. I have show and tails. I use an ampersand, that
Yeah.
squiggly thing. So it's show and tails
Uh-huh.
on Facebook. I also have an Instagram.
Okay.
That's where I'm a bit more active these days because it's so visual what I do. So, and that is also show and tails, but you actually have to spell out the and.
Okay.
So, show and tails, Tales.
Okay.
So, that's the best way to
I think
stay
I'm
in
going to be
touch.
adding a new page to my website. It's going to be called Links.
Yes.
I can put everybody's links or their hyperlinks up
Yes.
so we can remember where to go.
I would
But I'm
very
not going to
much
do it right
appreciate.
away. I still have to do my press releases. I'm like a whole week behind on that because I'm trying to keep up with the podcast and my website, updating it and stuff like that. But I am going to
Yes.
add that page. It may be blank for a while, but I am going to add that page.
Wonderful. Well, I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the opportunity to connect with you more. I appreciated you being on the Facebook page for the Global Grief um, Conference. And so when you put out a call for some other, people who would want to be on your podcast, I was like, absolutely, I want to be a part of this. And so I'm so grateful. Your energy is so wonderful and so uplifting, and like I knew you do important healing work in the world, and I want to be a part of your network too. So.
You're more than welcome anytime. And, I would, next time I have you on, this time you're going to show and tell. because,
Okay.
because you are going from, you said New Hampshire?
So I am in Austin
Yeah,
now.
but you started out in New
So I
Hampshire,
started in Vermont
Vermont.
in
So
in
you're
in
always on
December.
your trip to California. Not, you can have plenty of stuff to tell stories about.
I know, but I only have a 21-foot RV, so I can't have too much. I can't collect too much stuff.
So then you can show a picture of it.
That's the beauty of small places. I was forced to keep things down.
The next time I have you come on the podcast, I want you to show and tell your stories. Because I
Absolutely.
better be willing to hear a lot of good stories from every place you've journeyed. I wish I had the money and time to do that, to travel, to buy an RV and then travel around the country. Because especially in the summertime, because that's when
Yeah.
in the spring and the summer, that's when everything's out and everything is beautiful.
Yeah.
No snow for me, no ice. I'm still
I know.
do what
I'm kind of
I
feeling that
do in
too.
the winter. My bones will not tolerate it.
I totally agree.
I don't even know how you could be living in New Hampshire in the winter months.
No, not my mother goes to Hilton Head in the winter, Hilton Head Island, South Carolina. And I drive her down and then I head out to New Mexico. So
Oh,
she gets out of Vermont in the winter. I get out of Vermont in the winter. I can't do it anymore. The same thing. I love New England. Spent a lot of time in New England. I love the seasons, but I can't deal with the cold and the snow and the ice anymore either.
yeah, you can't pay me $1 million to move back up north, especially
No.
in the wintertime. I'm sorry.
I agree.
No, I'm not young. I'm not that young chick anymore. My body's telling me something totally different than what my mind is telling me. So
I get it.
I'm thankful. Thank you for being here. This is Unplugged Grief Ministries. My podcast on my phone just ended, but I think I'm still here on Zoom. So anyway, this is Dee with Unplugged Grief Ministries, and I'm so thankful that Marti McNabb was with us and sharing her show and tell. And tomorrow morning, our next guest is going to be at 9 o'clock in the morning. So I have to get up early. But it's Di Parker. I don't know if you know Di Parker.
I
She's
don't.
from she's from a little island that's between Ireland and United Kingdom. She said between Liverpool and Dubon. Whatever what's the main big city in Ireland that starts with
Dublin.
a D? Yes,
Dublin.
Dublin. So she said I think she said it's called Man of Islands or Islands of Man.
Yes.
So
Isle of Man.
yeah, so she lives there. So her time zone is way different than mine. So I have to be up at 9 to do hers.
Wow.
Yes, and
Wonderful.
so,
I'll
but
look forward to hearing that.
you know what really excited me is when I announced about the podcast, I was just so thankful how quick, boom, 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 how everybody was so anxious to want to be on it. I've never had that kind of a quick response before. And,
Really?
and,
Oh.
and I said to Tony, God is working in mysterious ways.
Always,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Always.
So thank you for being here, Marty. Have a safe trip. Wherever you go
Thank you.
next and next and next and next, and a safe trip back home when the time comes. But I will find your Facebook because I'm sure you share a lot of your stories and stuff on your Facebook page
Yes.
and hear those stories. But
Yeah.
that would be
Thank you
fun.
so much, Dee, for this opportunity.
Well, I'm glad you're here, and I look forward to attending your workshop at the
Yes.
end of August. So I
Um,
will do my ultimate best to have at least a minimum of two things, just in case.
Perfect. Perfect.
At least you know I'll have one.
Yes. I get
Yeah.
it.
So
All
text me and
right.
say, "Hey D, don't forget your show and tell." you know.
I will remind you.
Yeah,
You
please.
made an announcement that you would be one of my guests that can be on camera. So I will definitely keep that. You will hear from me.
Yeah, I
You
will
made
hear
a
from you.
commitment. All right, a real pleasure.
All right. Have fun. Have a safe trip.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, everybody,
Be
for
well.
joining us. I look forward to seeing you all tomorrow morning.
Yeah.
Have a wonderful Thursday night. Bye
Good
bye.
night.